Our top story today, Fort Hood is talking more about a missile that fell out of a helicopter and led to several neighborhood evacuations last night. We have a picture to show you, just received in the News 10 newsroom. Rachel Cox right now talking with the man who found this missile. This is the picture he took right after he found it. About 8:15, Fort Hood police got a call from a man who said his children saw an object fall out of the sky out of a helicopter in an open field near Aquarius and Trimmier Drives. Killeen police found a missile in the ground. About an hour later, Fort Hood's explosive team identified the missile as a training device that helps crews simulate missions without actually launching a missile. Then at 11:45, the device was finally taken back to Fort Hood, and the people who live nearby were able to go back to their homes. Colonel Howard Ari, the 3 Corps aviation officer, released a statement saying an investigation is underway, even as we review our safety and other procedures to ensure we understand why this happened and how to prevent it from happening again in the future. Fort Hood officials will release another statement with more information at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll update you on KWTX.com and, of course, on News 10 at 5 and 6 o'clock.
Fort Hood is answering questions on what fell from the sky right behind some homes late last night.
That device was first spotted as it fell from an Apache helicopter by 2 teenage boys last night. After 12-year-old Israel and 14-year-old Gabriel Davis told their dad, veteran Kenton Davis, the 3 went to check it out. A short distance behind their home in a field is where they found the device buried in the ground. The boys initially thought the helicopter had dropped a care package, but their dad thought it looked more like a missile.
I didn't know what it was, so I pulled it up and I seen missile. Training missile. I'm like, okay. So I sent them to get my phone so I can call the MPs or somebody from Fort Hood.
About 100 homes were evacuated for about an hour as Fort Hood's explosive ordnance disposal team found it was not a live round. Killeen police and fire departments responded and helped pull the device out of the ground.
Well, since the device has been found, there's been a lot of questions for Fort Hood as to how this could have happened. Rachel
Cox was on the scene last night and joins us now from our Bell County newsroom. Rachel, did Fort Hood officials even know the device had fallen off the helicopter when it happened?
No, they didn't, Julie and Gordon. The helicopter had actually just taken off from Robert Gray Army Airfield when they believe something happened that caused that device to fall off the aircraft without the soldiers even realizing it. The helicopter was being operated by soldiers from the 21st Cavalry Brigade unit. Luckily, Mr. Davis did do the right thing and alerted the authorities. Had that not happened, Fort Hood officials say there would have been no way to find the device. And because of his military experience, Davis first made the call to the EOD and sent them pictures of the device. That's when EOD told him to get back because the device looked like a Hellfire missile. While EOD ruled out the threat for any explosion, it was just pure luck that the 100-pound device did not hit a house, a car, or even a person.
Is the Fort Hood air crews never ever fly with live ordnance off the installation. Aviation safety is first and foremost with our partner communities, and that is always in our planning considerations.
Army officials said today they don't believe anything like this has ever happened in the cities surrounding Fort Hood. And right now this incident is still being investigated by the Army. During this time, they will also review their safety procedures to hopefully prevent something like this from happening again. Julie Gordon, back to you.
All right, Rachel Cox, thanks. That Army training missile that fell off of a Fort Hood-based helicopter into a residential area last night has raised many questions. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gordon Collier.
And I'm Julie Hayes. Rachel Cox was in that Killeen neighborhood when emergency crews pulled it out of the ground. Rachel, did the Army say how this happened?
Julie and Gordon, so far that still remains a mystery that has some worried as to how the military could even lose a device like this. The Army says they are now investigating. Soldiers from the 21st Cavalry Brigade unit took off in the helicopter from Robert Gray Army Airfield around 8 last night. Just about 15 minutes later, Fort Hood officials say a veteran in the neighborhood told them he was worried a missile had just landed near his backyard.
Because when my boy said, Dad, it dropped and it just guided and like crashed and it boom. It's like, it was cool. Like, cool. Like, what if it blew up?
Kenton Davis didn't believe what his teenage boys told him last night about watching something fall from an Army helicopter. So he had to see it to believe it.
I didn't know what it was, so I pulled it up and I seen a missile.
That's when this veteran snapped some pictures of what looked like a Hellfire missile and sent them to explosives experts at Fort Hood.
Texted the MPs. I texted the MPs, and then they text back, say get away from it. Then we called KPD and they came out.
That quickly led to the evacuation of about 100 homes in the area, as emergency responders worked for several hours to pull what the Army says is a training device out of the ground.
It looks like a missile. So appropriately, the community emergency services responded, saw what it looked like to be a missile, and evacuated those neighborhoods.
Even though there was no danger of an explosion, the 100-pound device and mystery behind how the Army lost it still had some neighbors on edge today.
They could have hurt a child. They could have hurt somebody's home, you know. We just thank God every day that it landed in this field and not just a few yards away.
I was in the living room, my wife was asleep, and my boys were outside playing, so I have no idea what could have happened.
Today, the Army announced they have launched an internal investigation into this incident. They say that device isn't even designed to come off the helicopter, but somehow it did, and they're going to find out why. They did also confirm that even though the area of Central Texas that air crews travel is very large, they never fly with live rounds off the installation. Gordon, back to you.
All right, Rachel Cox, thanks. Now, this device was a dummy Hellfire missile. That's short for helicopter-launched fire and forget weapon. They could usually be found on Apache helicopters during combat. This is video of one of those missiles. Now, the M36 training device that was found wasn't live and is used to simulate such missions in the cockpit without actually firing it or launching it from the aircraft. It doesn't have any explosives nor any propulsion system.